Fear, which often paralyzes us, is also the same fuel that has ignited some of humanity's greatest works. Did you know that without fear, the art of Frida Kahlo, the symphonies of Beethoven, and even the revolutionary leaps in science might never have existed? Think of fear as a creative spark. It illuminates the deepest regions of the soul, those we can only access when we are vulnerable. Frida Kahlo, for example, transformed her physical pain into emotionally charged paintings, creating a bridge between her personal experience and the collective unconscious. And Beethoven, despite losing his hearing, used the fear of irrelevance to compose the Ninth Symphony, one of the grandest works of all time. Now imagine fear not as a monster, but as a teacher. It nudges you, saying, "Look at this. Here is something important that you need to face." Accepting it is not a sign of weakness, but of courage. The courage to dive into the turbulent waters of self-transformation. If fear can be the architect of such sublime works, what is it trying to build within you now? Imagine the following scene. You are standing in front of a blank canvas. It could be a painting canvas, a piece of paper, or even the first paragraph of a book you dream of writing. What do you feel? For many, this moment brings a mix of excitement and fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of judgment, fear of failure. But what if I told you that fear is not your enemy, but a guide, a compass pointing to the path that matters most? We have all been there, caught in the tension between the desire to create something meaningful and the paralysis that fear brings. I myself have been in that place many times. There were moments when fear told me, "You can't do it." But over time, I learned something powerful. Fear is not a villain, but a messenger. It carries hidden lessons and unexpected possibilities. The good news is that you are not alone on this journey. In this guide, we will explore how to face fear head-on, transforming it into a creative force. Together, we will learn to use practices based on timeless philosophies like Stoicism, Buddhism, and Taoism, along with insights from positive psychology. After all, if there is one thing these traditions teach us, it is that adversity is not an obstacle, but the ground where we flourish. The Stoic Seneca said, "What we fear when we face the future is more frequently something that will never happen." Fear, according to him, is a mental projection, an exaggeration of our imagination. Buddhism teaches us to observe our emotions with curiosity, without attachment, while Taoism suggests that we flow like water, adapting to the present moment. Positive psychology in turn reinforces that reframing fear can set us free. Sounds promising, doesn't it? Before we dive into practical strategies, I want to ask you a question to reflect on. What is your biggest fear today? Is it really there to stop you, or could it be a disguised opportunity? Fear is a primary emotion, hardwired into human DNA. Since the dawn of our existence, it has been present as a survival mechanism. It was fear that alerted our ancestors to predators, ensuring they reacted quickly to protect themselves. Today, however, fear rarely comes from imminent physical threats. It is more subtle but equally powerful, and can manifest as anxiety, insecurity, or paralysis in the face of the unknown. But let's look closer. Fear arises in response to a perceived threat. Perceived is the key word here. Often what we see as a threat is not as real or dangerous as we imagine. Our minds have a habit of exaggerating the consequences. As uncomfortable as it may be, fear also plays a vital role. It can alert us to situations that deserve attention or push us to act. Think of a work presentation you were afraid to give. The fear was there, but it also brought an energy that, when channeled correctly, can be transformed into a powerful performance. Aristotle said that courage is the virtue that balances cowardice and recklessness. But what he perhaps didn't say, or someone forgot to write down, is that fear is the ground on which courage stands. Without fear, there is no courage. Imagine fear as a fire alarm. It goes off when it detects danger. But what if this alarm is indicating not a fire, but a portal? A new, challenging path that you only notice because fear puts you on alert. In Stoicism, we learn to distinguish what we can and cannot control. By doing so, we realize that fear is often a mirror. It reflects not what is wrong, but what is out of our control. On the other hand, Buddhism suggests that we observe fear as a passing visitor. Don't fight it. Just acknowledge it and invite it to sit beside you. When you do this, it loses power, because fear feeds on your resistance. Have you ever stopped to think about what would happen if, instead of running from fear, you walked through the door it is guarding? Let's imagine an everyday situation. You want to change careers, but the fear of failure paralyzes you. What happens? Your mind starts creating negative scenarios. What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if people judge me? This spiral of thoughts can make you avoid the risk and stay in a comfort zone that doesn't satisfy you. But what if you could reinterpret these thoughts? Instead of, what if I fail? Ask yourself, what if I learn something transformative during the process? In Buddhism, we are taught to observe thoughts as clouds in the sky. They come and go, but they do not define who we are. This practice helps us create emotional distance from fear, allowing it to lose some of its power. On the other hand, stoicism guides us to focus on what is within our control. We can control our efforts, not the outcomes. Did you know that NASA uses fear scenarios to drive innovation in space missions? Before launching a probe, they imagine all the things that could go wrong, and then turn these scary possibilities into creative solutions. We can apply this logic to life. When something seems scary, ask yourself, what could go wrong? Then reframe it. What can I do to prepare? Just like NASA, you turn uncertainties into fuel for action. For example, if the fear of starting that creative project is paralyzing you, break it down into smaller parts, like a spaceship built by modules. Make an outline of what you want to achieve. Choose a small initial step and bring it to life, even with imperfections. Remember, it's not perfection that inspires people, it's the process. Why not try the NASA method on your next challenge? Start by writing down the fear scenarios and then turn each one into a plan. Here is something you can try right now. Identify a fear that has been holding you back lately. Ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen if I face this fear? Now ask, and what is the best thing that could happen? Finally, reflect. What is within my control to minimize the risks and maximize the chances of success? Share in the comments. What fear did you identify? And what would be the best thing that could happen if you faced it? Your comment could inspire someone going through something similar. Fear is like an internal alarm. It is not there to paralyze us, but to alert us to something important. When we recognize this, fear stops being a block and becomes an invitation to reflection. Imagine that your fear of public speaking is not a sign of inability, but a reminder that it is important to you, an opportunity to grow. Stoicism teaches us that it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but how we interpret them. This is the power of reframing. You do not need to eliminate fear. You need to change how you see it. Have you heard of the zone of productive panic? It is that place between the comfort zone, where nothing changes, and the overload zone, where stress paralyzes. It is in the middle of this, on the edge of discomfort, that magic happens. Taoism suggests that we flow like water. When water encounters an obstacle, it does not confront it with force, but finds new paths around it. Applying this to fear means accepting initial discomfort, knowing it is temporary, a push towards something greater. Think of marathon runners. In the first kilometers, the body protests, and the fear of exhaustion appears. But over time, the flow emerges, a state where discomfort dissolves, and the mind aligns with the goal. Fear is just the ticket to get there. The next time discomfort arises, remember, you are on the edge of your transformation. Will you embrace it or step back? When fear arises, it often brings automatic negative thoughts. I can't do this. I will fail. This will be a disaster. Positive psychology guides us to challenge these thoughts. Ask yourself, what evidence do you have that this is true? Is there another way to interpret this situation? What skills or resources do you already have to deal with this? For example, instead of thinking, I can't, try restructuring the thought to, I can't yet, but I am learning. This small adjustment in language has a significant impact on how you face the challenge. Let's take an everyday example. Suppose you received negative feedback at work. Your initial reaction might be to feel incapable or like a failure. But what if you reframe this experience as an opportunity to improve? Ask yourself, what is this feedback trying to teach me? How can I use it to grow professionally? This simple exercise of reframing can transform how you deal with fear and criticism. Taoism offers a practical perspective on fear. It suggests that we accept the natural flows of life rather than fight against them. Just as water finds its way around obstacles, we too can learn to adapt our responses to fear, flowing with it instead of resisting. Buddhism teaches us that everything is impermanent, including fear. When you accept that fear is just a passing sensation, it loses the power to control you. Here is a quick exercise to change your perspective. Think of a situation that provokes fear or anxiety. Write down how you are currently seeing this situation. Example, this is too hard for me. Rewrite this perspective in a positive or neutral way. Example, this is challenging, but I can learn a lot from it. Read the new sentence aloud and observe how you feel. As Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now it's your turn. Think of something you want to reframe in your life and share your new perspective in the comments. Your experience could help others see their situations in a new light. Discomfort is an inevitable companion on the path to growth. Imagine yourself in front of a campfire. The heat can be intense, uncomfortable, but it is what keeps the flame burning. Similarly, fear and discomfort are the fuels that drive our journey of self-discovery and innovation. When you embrace this discomfort, it becomes a source of creative energy. Great works of art, revolutionary inventions, and impactful social movements often arise from fear and uncertainty. Think of Frida Kahlo, whose physical and emotional pain transformed into paintings that resonate to this day. Or Steve Jobs, who faced the fear of failure when launching innovative products. History is full of examples of individuals who turned their fears into fuel for creativity. Let's bring this to your daily life. Imagine you want to start a new project, but are afraid of not being good enough. This fear can be seen as a signal to prepare better, learn new skills, and seek support. Instead of letting it paralyze you, use it as motivation to innovate and continuously improve. One effective technique is reverse fear. Instead of asking, what could go wrong? Ask yourself, what can I do to ensure it goes right? This shifts the focus from paralysis to action. Positive psychology teaches us that by turning fear into motivation, we build resilience. Instead of avoiding challenging situations, we allow ourselves to face them, learning and growing with each attempt. This cycle of exposure and adaptation strengthens our ability to deal with future uncertainties and obstacles. Stoicism guides us to practice preparation for adversity. By visualizing difficulties in advance, the impact of fear is reduced. Seneca said, "Luck favors the prepared mind." By anticipating challenges, you reduce uncertainty and turn fear into an opportunity to plan and act. Buddhism, on the other hand, suggests that fear is an illusion created by the mind. When we meditate on fear, we can see through its layers and realize that most of the time, it has no real substance. Try this exercise to turn fear into fuel. Identify a situation that scares you. Ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen? And then, how can I prepare for it? List 3 actions you can take to reduce fear and turn this situation into an opportunity for growth. As Nelson Mandela wisely put it, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Reflect on a fear you faced recently and how it pushed you to act differently. Share your experience in the comments and inspire others to do the same. Now that we understand fear and know how to reframe it and turn it into fuel, let's explore practical strategies to face and overcome this emotion. Integrating mindfulness, planning, and visualization into the process. Mindfulness teaches us to bring our attention to the present moment, observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment. This practice is especially effective against fear, as it lives in the realm of future possibilities, a territory outside the present. How to practice mindfulness. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes and focus on your breath. When an anxious thought arises, acknowledge it and let it pass, like a cloud in the sky. Return to your breath whenever necessary. Before an important presentation, instead of getting lost in the fear of, what if I mess up? Try a 5-minute meditation. Focus only on your breath. This helps reduce the intensity of anxiety and anchors you in the present. One of the biggest causes of fear is the feeling of being overwhelmed by the magnitude of a challenge. A practical technique to combat this is to break down large goals into smaller, more manageable parts. Imagine your goal is to write a book. Instead of focusing on the colossal task of writing a book, break the process into small goals. Write 500 words a day. Create a simple outline for the first chapter. Do basic research on the topic. This way, each small step feels less scary and becomes a victory in itself. Positive visualization is a powerful tool for dealing with fear. Studies show that imagining yourself overcoming challenges can increase your confidence and help you stay focused on what matters. How to do it? Close your eyes and imagine yourself successfully facing the fear. See yourself completing the task with mastery and celebrating the result. Repeat this practice regularly, reinforcing the positive image. If you are afraid of public speaking, visualize yourself on stage, calm, confident, and receiving applause at the end. This constant practice helps train your brain to believe that success is possible. Practices to transform fear into growth. Stoicism. Identify what is out of your control and let it go. Focus on what you can do today. Buddhism. Do a guided meditation focused on fear. Observe it without judgment, as if you were watching a movie. Positive psychology. Rewrite your fears as challenges. Replace, "What if I fail?" with, "What can I learn from this?" Practical exercise. List 3 fears you face today. For each one, write the worst and best things that could happen. Then take a concrete step to face at least one of them. Fear is not a block. It is a map. It points to the places that really matter. It is on the most challenging trails that the most beautiful landscapes are revealed. As Alan Watts said, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. What will you transform today? What fear will you reframe as art, expression, or a bold step? Share, inspire, and let's grow together. Stoicism. Face small discomforts daily. This trains your mind to handle challenging situations better. For example, take a cold shower or tackle a difficult task first thing in the morning. Buddhism. Practice detachment from the final outcome. By focusing on the process rather than the result, fear tends to diminish. Taoism. Adopt the principle of Wu Wei, or effortless action. Instead of fighting against fear, accept it and flow with it. This acceptance can reduce internal resistance and free your creative energy. Practical exercise. Try this 10-minute plan. Write down the biggest fear you are facing. Break this fear down into its components. What exactly scares you? For each part, note a practical action you can take today to deal with it. Choose one of these actions and commit to executing it within the next 24 hours. As Lao Tzu stated, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The first step is always the hardest, but also the most important. Now, it's your turn. Think of a goal or fear you have been putting off. What is the first small step you can take today? Write it in the comments and inspire others to start too. One of the biggest mistakes we make when facing our fears is focusing only on the final destination and neglecting the value of the journey. Each small progress is a triumph, a step on the ladder leading to personal growth. Recognizing and celebrating these steps is essential to maintaining motivation and reducing the pressure of having to get there. If you started facing your fear of public speaking, celebrate the fact that you signed up for a course or even practiced in front of the mirror. Small victories build strength, like bricks constructing a solid wall against fear. Mistakes are part of the process and often bring the most valuable lessons. Instead of treating setbacks as failures, see them as course corrections. Emotional resilience is born when you learn to fall and rise, each time stronger. Seneca said, There is no favorable wind for the sailor who doesn't know where he is heading. Mistakes are just redirections, signs that the path may need adjustments. Imagine you faced your fear and gave a presentation but ended up stumbling on an important part. Ask yourself, what did I learn from this experience? What can I do differently next time? By focusing on learning, you turn a moment of discomfort into a step toward excellence. Resilience is not about never feeling fear, but about continuing to move forward despite it. Think of athletes who face numerous defeats before achieving victory, or entrepreneurs who fail multiple times before creating a successful business. The key is to persist, adjusting your approach along the way. In Buddhism, the idea of impermanence reminds us that everything is temporary, including fear and difficult moments. When we accept this, we find the strength to persevere, knowing that things always change. Practical exercise, building resilience in daily life. Reflect on a moment when you overcame a challenge. What did you do right? List 3 qualities or internal resources that helped you overcome that moment. Whenever you feel fear, remember this moment and use these qualities as anchors to move forward. As Helen Keller said, security is mostly a superstition. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Facing our fears is what gives life its depth and meaning. Ultimately, accepting fear as part of the human experience is the first step toward personal transformation. When we stop fighting it and embrace it, fear ceases to be an enemy and becomes a teacher, a guide pointing us to where we need to go. Taoism teaches us the art of acceptance. By flowing with the current of life rather than resisting it, we discover that the most challenging path is also the most enriching. Now is the time to look within and reflect. What is the next step in your journey? It doesn't need to be big or bold, just sincere. Share in the comments one step you will take to face a fear or transform your life. And remember, you are not alone on this journey. Each step you take inspires others to do the same. What was a moment when you used fear as motivation to achieve something important? Is there a specific fear holding you back today? How would it feel to face it? What do you think fear might be trying to teach you now? If this content brought new perspectives for you, don't forget to like, comment, and share with someone who might benefit from this message. In the first pinned comment, you will find the link to download